Hi, I'm Jacqueline Rinksmeyer, Executive Director of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
And I'm Jared Fry, General Manager and Public Information Officer for the City of Medina and Medina TV.
One of the core values of the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce is business advocacy. We've been proud to partner with Medina TV on this voter education series for well over 10 years now. We're grateful to our interviewer and General Manager of Medina TV, Jared Fry, and our producer, Matt Tomick.
We're grateful for all the candidates that took part in the Candidates Forum, but we also want to stress that the opinions of those candidates are not those necessarily of Medina TV or the Greater Medina Chamber of Commerce.
All candidates in contested races were invited to participate in this voter education program.
We want all voters to be informed to their best of the ability as they head to the ballot this November, so sit back and relax and enjoy our Candidates Forum.
We encourage you to make a plan to vote this November.
Joining me now in studio is Dennis Kucinich, candidate for U.S. Congress, 7th District. Dennis, thank you for joining us here today.
Great to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. And first, why don't you just take a few seconds and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, let's see. I think people in Medina, some of whom lived in Cuyahoga County for years, would remember me as the mayor of Cleveland. I started my career very early. And to me, it's always been about public service. It's never about me personally. It's about how do I help to make an office serve the people? And when I did that in Cleveland, I saved our municipal electric system from a takeover. And I was able to cut city spending by 15% without reducing services. Ran a city on a cash basis, which probably no one in America does anymore. But my feeling is that with our country's government, the people have to rule. Not the government ruling over the people rule over the government.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Now, take a second and explain to us the role of a congressman.
Well, I can tell you how I have done it, because I've been, I served 16 years in the House of Representatives before I was gerrymandered out, unfortunately, by my own party because of my opposition to war. A congressman has to vote. That's your first responsibility. But what I did was to be at everything in the community, to meet with people, to find out what their real concerns are, so that when I go to Washington, I'm better informed maybe than most members, because I make it a point to reach out to people. And I make it a point to have that office help people to be the intermediary with the government, because these big bureaucracies make it easy to just shove people away. I'm the person who goes inside and fights on their behalf and makes the system work. But there's another thing I do, too. I have the political experience to be able to actually make a difference in Washington. And I work with people in both parties. And the most important thing today, I believe, is to focus on the needs of the people in America instead of spending money all over the world. And to stop these endless wars. Because we could very well be on the verge of World War III right now because of the mindset that exists in Washington of domination instead of diplomacy. So you can't have prosperity here at home if we're spending, as we have, $8 trillion since 9/11 on these endless wars. I mean, every family in America, if they hadn't had to shovel that money over to the government, would have great prosperity, but we don't have that now. And so my own ability to be able to get into the system, to raise the issues, to tell the truth, to challenge the system, to do it not as a partisan. That's why I'm not running with any party. When people vote for me, I put the country above party, people above party, and I work with both parties. So as a congressman, my role is dynamic. It has, with integrity, and above all, tell the truth in Washington and to the people.
And you kind of just touch on this, but I'll give you a chance to kind of expand with my question here a little bit. You mentioned your rich political history. What made you decide to run for Congress?
I'm looking at what's happening in the country right now. One war after another, and the kind of money we're spending in these wars. What does it serve us? We have not made a single friend based on sending hundreds of billions of dollars over for wars here and there. Take care of things here at home. We have neighborhoods that need help. For example, in Cuyahoga County, particularly, in some of the more older urban areas, crime's an issue. Just think, instead of spending money for bombs, sending them overseas, think if we spend money for police and fire and EMS, the real needs of a community that help make communities strong. And so, you know, one of the reasons I feel that I was endorsed by the Cleveland Police Patrolmen's Association is because of my sensitivity to this issue of crime. And it happens at all levels, and we cannot take it for granted. People move to the suburbs, they move to counties like Medina because they want to get away from this, you know, crime. And yet, if police departments don't have enough support, if there's not enough personnel, if there's not enough equipment, fire too, if there's not enough equipment for fire, the communities aren't served. So my approach is to say, take care of things at home.
What is, I always commend everyone that runs for office, no matter where on the ballot, to be a part of the political process. What's your passion or drive to take part in politics?
It's really about feeling what one's purpose in life is. I felt from the earliest age that my purpose was to be of service. Now, there's many ways to serve. Some people serve by being teachers, doctors, lawyers, business people, nurses, on and on and on. I took my passion for public service into government. And I started at a level of a city council, which is where you really connect with people. But I do this because I love my country. I love America. And I see the potential that we have. But I also see when danger's ahead where we could lose it by not following our constitutional rights. We lose that potential when government moves towards censorship, when it doesn't want people to be able to get together and talk about, you know, how they might disagree with the government. First Amendment rights, Fourth Amendment rights, where government wants to spy on Americans. You know, I led the effort against the Patriot Act when I was in Congress. I like to say because I read it. They put in a new version of the bill just before Congress voted on it. And I believe in the Constitution. When it comes to the Constitution, I am a conservative constitutionalist. And my passion comes from just an understanding that one person can make a difference, no matter who that one person is, not just me. I want to be very clear about that. That I like to inspire others to show how they can make a difference too. How anytime a person steps forward, they can change things. One of my early political heroes was Senator Robert F. Kennedy. And he spoke to students in South Africa months before he was unfortunately assassinated. And he was asked, you know, by these students who were under the crushing regime of apartheid, okay, you come in here from America, you're from New York, how can you say that our lives will be different? And here's what he told them. He said, each time a man or a woman stands up for an ideal, acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he or she sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. And crossing each other from a million different centers of energy and daring, those ripples can create a current which can sweep down the mightiest walls of oppression and resistance. When I heard that speech, I felt it was part of my calling. But anyone who understands the deeper meaning of what I just quoted, reflect on it, because you can make a difference. Every one of us is meant to make a difference. It's not just a social mission, it's a spiritual mission as well. We're not here on this planet just to slog around. You know, we're here to reach for the heights and to make things happen and to create a country, in this case, which we would be proud to pass on to our children, grandchildren, and future generations.
Right, we're speaking with Dennis Kucinich, candidate for the U.S. Congress 7th District. Now, you kind of touched on this in one of your answers earlier, but I'm going to go back to it a little bit. How do you handle, if elected, that balance? Like you mentioned, there are 5 counties that serve in your district for this district. How would you handle that balance of serving those constituents here in those 5 counties, as well as handling what's going on in the nation?
Well, first of all, what happens at home, people have concerns have to be taken care of. The last time I was in Congress, my office handled about 11,000 requests for service a year, and I put that as the highest priority. The next thing is congressional offices. Now, Medina has an office. Before I had an office in Lakewood, an office in Parma. The district was small then. Now it's spread out over several counties. I plan on having an office in Parma, an office in Medina, but also one in Worcester, so people won't have to drive from Worcester, Wayne County, or from Holmes County to meet a congressional office. The other thing I did was that I would have a video hookup with the district office, so if people came in and they wanted to meet with me, they could have a meeting by a television hookup. I'd be in Washington, they'd be in Medina or Worcester or Cuyahoga County. And because I put a premium on going out and meeting with people, I create the balance by being there. When people need me, I'm there. But when I'm in Washington, I am focused on the needs of the district, which I believe are creating prosperity. You know, small business, a big part of my platform is making sure that small business and family farmers are protected. Right now we have estate taxes that are just, you know, people want to keep a business in the family and they're getting absolutely smacked by estate tax. They can't do it. I intend to go to Congress and do something about that. Right now there are small businesses. The National Federation of Independent Businesses was on Capitol Hill this week talking to members of Congress about having the 20% business deduction on qualified business income made permanent. Helps create jobs, helps raise wages. I mean, I get involved. I'm an activist on the floor of the House. And because I work with people in both parties, I have an impact. And think about this. If I'm elected, I could very well be the only independent in the next House of Representatives. 217 Democrats, 217 Republicans, 1 independent, yours truly. And if I'm in that position of a balance of power, this congressional district becomes the most important congressional district in America, because every measure that I make about the politics of something, about the importance of an issue, will always reflect back on what's in the best interest of the people back home. So, you know, I'm ready to carry that forward.
And you just mentioned small business in your answer there, and that's what will lead me in my next question, actually, is how would you look out for small businesses, even some of the larger businesses that exist here in these counties? Well,
you know, the needs of small business are a little bit different than the larger businesses. As I mentioned, businesses, I think there's something like 35 million small businesses in the United States. That's an economic power, it's a social power. It also it is the glue that holds communities together. When you look at a main street, and if there's gaps in businesses and storefronts closed, you know that it's a reflection of what's happening in the local economy. But when you see the businesses active and vibrant, that also is a reflection of what's going on. Medina's in that latter capacity. The biggest issues that deal with business right now generally have to do with taxation. And here's, you know, people say, okay, if you give everybody a 25 or 20% reduction on qualified business income, cut it by 25%. Where are you going to get the money? That's, you know, because you always got to say, where are you going to get the money? Well, actually, you start putting a tax on the stock buybacks, which right now the larger companies are making, and they're making to the tune of trillions of dollars. and it's not producing any economic activity that's redounds to the benefit of people. So I'll focus on, as an advocate of small business. Big business, oh my God, they have so many representatives in Congress, they don't need another one. But for me, I go there to represent the little guy, the person who's trying to make ends meet, the person who's trying to build a business, hire people, make a profit to help their family. You know, I'm someone who's known as, I challenge the monopolies. These monopolies, as they grow, they can often suffocate small businesses. And I know chambers of commerce have a dynamic balance. You've got small businesses, large businesses. And I want to represent everyone, but I'm very partial to making sure that small business, through me, will have a voice, will have a place they can go to. I work so closely with the Small Business Administration. When people need help, just open the door and usher them right in for the assistance they need. Because government's supposed to be there to help people, not just to take taxes out of their pocket. The other thing I want you to know, I was on the Government Oversight Committee, and I rose to the level of chairman of domestic policy. I know how government wastes money. I am not for tax increases of any kind, because what happens is generally the money is going to be wasted. I'm really concerned about that. The kind of money that goes out through waste, fraud, and abuse, corruption inside government. People work hard for their money. And when they're paying taxes, it should only be because the government, in good faith, needs the resources to serve all of us. In the spirit of Abraham Lincoln, government should do for people collectively what they can't do for themselves individually. But I intend to go there as an advocate of small businesses. I'll talk to anyone, but I know where I know what holds America together.
Now, in terms of that, we have another issue that's big here in Medina. There are 3 school districts that are going up on the ballot this November for either bond issues or operating levies to handle school funding. Kind of what are your thoughts in regards to school funding?
I was on the Education Committee, and most of the school funding relates to county and state taxation. Generally speaking, you know, as someone who's been on the Education Committee, understands the primacy of education in the life of our nation, understands that because we are not putting enough of a premium, particularly on public education, America is starting to see its role in the world slip. You know, math, reading, you know, the various skills that young people need to make an impact in the world. They're not getting the kind of help they need everywhere. Schools often are starved for resources. So, you know, I'm generally there to support local school districts when they need help. I'm also there to be an advocate for education. Public education in particular needs to have an advocate. Now, I myself went to a Catholic school for 11 and a half out of 12 years, and I benefited from that. But I also know that public schools, some of the best public schools, are on par with the best private schools. And we need to make sure the resources are there. So, you know, those are decisions that are left to a county level. And I'm careful about, you know, trying to advise people what they should do. But I can tell you that I am someone who understands the importance of public education. That's the path for social mobility. And we must never forget that public education is one of the things that made America a free nation and gave people a sense of how knowledge leads to even greater freedom, which it should.
Again, speaking with Dennis Kucinich, candidate for the U.S. Congress 7th District. Another big issue on the minds of people here in Medina is definitely affordable housing, whether it's young families just trying to get started and finding that home, maybe elderly looking to downsize and trying to find something in their price range. Kind of your thoughts on affordable housing.
This is a big concern in Medina, and it's a big concern everywhere. And let me tell you what's happening with housing. Unfortunately, you have hedge funds and capital markets that have entered into housing, and they're buying up houses everywhere. And assuming a very formidable role in the marketplace. I'm sure that some of the people watching this have had offers in the mail pretty frequently, or phone calls on their cell phone, unrequested. And how would you like to sell your home? Yeah. Well, that's been successful because these hedge funds, for example, they've been able to help corner the market. Now, what happens when that goes on? The price. They drive up the price. What also happens? The price of rentals go up too. So when you're talking about affordable housing, we have to look at the drivers that make housing unaffordable. And this is where I can make a difference in Washington, because I'm quite free to challenge these hedge funds, quite free to say, wait a minute, that anything beyond, let's say, a couple percentage points constitutes a monopoly, and that must not be permitted. The other thing that's happening, and people in Medina know this, as the values are driven up artificially, people end up paying more in property taxes. And seniors in particular are struggling to try to determine if the whole life they built around and in their home, if they're going to be able to stay in that home, because property taxes keep going up. And this, of course, affects school levies. People have to say, well, wait a minute, I love the schools, but I can't afford it. So we have to look at the mechanisms that are pushing up the price of materials, in some cases artificially, because again, it's a supply and demand, and in particular, how the market on residential housing is being cornered right now. And this has been one of the greatest challenges that people have had in the last few years. People are having trouble paying their mortgages. The number of defaults keeps increasing. I mean, think of what it's like to be at the family table with the monthly bills, and you're looking, you're saying, it's going to be really tight this time. Our mortgage is due, and what happened if we miss a payment? If people know you get on that slippery slope of missing a payment, and then you get moved towards default. This is a serious matter, because the American dream, the bedrock of the American dream is being able to own your own home. And that is being challenged right now. So I intend, if elected, I'm going to go back to Congress and to challenge these distortions in the housing market that are driving up prices, and also to work at a state level, because I was a state senator, to look at the mechanisms so the evaluation of property can more realistically reflect a fair level of taxation. And so, this is a complex thing. You're right. It should be #1 right now in the concerns of people in local communities. Because let's face it, Medina has a solid residential base. People love living in this county, but it's the job of somebody like myself, when I'm in office, to make sure that they're protected from these rapacious interests on Wall Street in particular, who just look at Main Street as something to be manipulated, like they did in the subprime meltdown a few years ago. What do? They sold, they peddled mortgages to people knowing they couldn't afford them. Oh, you want a better house? Here, sign the line. No document, low document. And so they did that to what? To put together what's called collateralized debt investments. And then they sold those at a fraction, and then what happened? The market goes bust, people lose their homes, Wall Street walks away, gets bailed out. I voted against that, led the effort against it. I go back, the people have an advocate, and I don't make any bones about it. I know exactly how the system works, and I want to make it work for the people that are out there watching this.
And you reference here a lot of your rich political history and the things you've done. What's something that you're most proud of doing?
I would have to say saving the municipal electric system in Cleveland, because, see, historically Cleveland has had lower electric rates than the private company in the Cleveland area. For years it was the Cleveland Electric Illuminating, now First Energy. And CEI, as it was known, had a plan going to just take over all the small electric companies, just take them over. And why would they do that? So they could have a monopoly and jack the price of electricity up. People were paying. When you had what's called Muni Light then, people were getting the same electricity, electricity is electricity is electricity, wherever you get it from, for 25% less. That means something to people. I remember my parents, when I was growing up, counting pennies to pay an electric bill. I can still hear those pennies dropping, I'm telling you. And so I know it matters what people pay for utilities. So when I was mayor of Cleveland, and I had the biggest bank in Ohio, then known as Cleveland Trust, tell me, look, Kucinich, either you are going to sell that electric system, get this, to CEI, in which the bank had a financial investment, right? It's like a business twin of the bank. Or we, the bank, will not renew the city's credit on loans I hadn't even taken out. Now, I was America's youngest mayor at the time, and I had enormous pressure put on me, and I even had a few assassination attempts. But for me, when you get there and you're in a room, a closed room, that is the most important moment to stand up for people, not to cut a deal and say, oh, well, you know, this will be good for me because if I sell to these guys, they're going to be wealthier, have monopoly, and they're going to help my career. Baloney. I was there, and to me, it was a spiritual question as well. You know, this whole thing about what profit a man if he gain the whole world and lose his soul. Every day in politics is a chance for people that are bargaining for their souls. And unfortunately, most people think that's the way to go. That's the way to advance politically. I said no. You know, it was a tough price to pay because I lost the next election. But people years later, when they realized they were saving, in Cleveland, hundreds of millions of dollars on electric bills, that's when they put me in the state Senate, put me in Congress and says, you're our guy and we trust you.
Now, if elected for the seat for Congress, what's the first thing you'd like to try to improve on?
Getting the two parties to talk to each other. I mean, there's like, it's worse than a high school gym where people are on one side and the other and nobody wants to mix. I made it a point when I was there the last time, I was constantly back and forth. It's like a water spider flitting around atop the surface to go and engage with people. Because the truth is that America, in its best representation, exists as an organic whole. Our whole existence is about being united, right? That's the first words. The first motto of the United States, E pluribus unum, Latin, out of many, one. So unity, oneness, there is an underlying unity in the country that I saw in presidential campaigns. And I intend to call that forward from the members because we should be finding ways to get along, to talk to each other. This idea that, you know, that some Democrats have that, well, you know, the Republicans, blah, blah, blah. Give me a break. I mean, we have to see each other as human beings. And if we don't have the capacity to do that, how in the world are we going to have peace? Mm-hmm. If everybody we look at we disagree with, we say, oh, they're our enemy, you know, we're going to find out how to get rid of them. To me, the Bible says, make peace with your brother. And we've got to find that fraternity again, that connection that men and women ought to have as servants of the public. So when I get back there, I have the capacity, because I've done it before, to engage with people on both sides and find ways that we can reason together. Of course, you know, do I have an agenda? Otherwise, yeah, I want to stop these wars. I warned America about the war in Iraq that was wrong, and other wars that were wrong. And I can help shine a light on the ongoing motives, businesses, and stuff inside the House of Representatives, so people actually know what's going on too. But you know, I believe peace and prosperity are inseparable, and I want America to take care of things back here at home. I want to see taxes reduced, not increased, for more war. I want to see a country where our Constitution is upheld as the sacred document, which it is. Our First Amendment rights restored, our ability to be able to speak freely as Americans about our opinion. It doesn't matter if you're right or wrong, you have the freedom of speech. And we're losing that, the ability to keep government out of our private lives. Government should be afraid of the people. The people should not be afraid of government. And we've kind of had it flipped in recent years. So I have plenty of work to do. I'm ready. All I need is a vote.
Again, speaking with Dennis Kucinich, candidate for U.S. Congress of the 7th District. I know, Dennis, you've been great in answering my questions. I want to make sure I give you plenty of time. The floor for you one last time. If there's something I missed, or let you talk directly to the voters, the floor is yours. You can go right to the camera there.
Well, first of all, thank you very much for the chance to be here. You know, I have the political experience to make this seat in Congress the most important seat in the country. On behalf of the people of Medina and City and County and Cuyahoga County, Wayne County, Holmes County, I'm very grounded in what my aspirations are for you, the people. We have to stop the endless wars. We have to stop this rising budget deficit, which is approaching $36 trillion now, and destroying our capacity to be able to build a future America. We have to secure the border. It's disgraceful that people have been able to flock across the border. We don't even know who they are half the time, putting extra burdens, causing billions and billions of dollars of burdens on government at every level, and giving people false hope about, you know, being able to come across the border. My grandparents on my dad's side came to this country through Ellis Island, and there's been a regular immigration program that's worked for many years. We need to return to that and not be in a position where immigration is used as some kind of a political tool. I want to see us reduce taxes because a lot of government spending is wasted. I want to make sure that America remembers that the glue that holds America together, small businesses, family farmers, and find a way to help our small businesses and family farmers survive. One way, we've got to do something about that estate tax, because when the head of a family passes away, it's very tough to keep a family business or family farm to hold on to it because of the high estate taxes. We're going to have to do something about that. My journey is really one of a feeling of being very fortunate to have been in public service. But it's never about me. It's about you. And should you choose me as your congressman, you'll have someone who knows how the system works and is relentless in challenging that system to make sure it works for you. Thank you very much.
Again, this is Dennis Kucinich, candidate for the U.S. Congress 7th District. And Dennis, I want to thank you for your time today, and I want to wish you the best of luck this November.
My luck always gets better in forums like this. People need more information, just go to Kucinich.com, Kucinich.com.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.